and welcome to the Gotham Outsiders, our Batman book club. Introducing Marcus Toe of Red Robin, Red Hood, Batman Urban Legends, among so many more, including currently Marvel's Excalibur and Shang-Chi. Hello!
Hello, thanks for having me.
TJ and I are so glad to have you.
Oh no, I'm really happy to be on with you as well. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited. I know this is one of Chris's favorite books, Red
Absolutely.
Robin, and they've got me to read it twice now. So
100%.
I apologize in advance then.
No, oh my gosh, no. I enjoyed it. Like I liked it the first time a lot, and the second time around, I've read a lot more Batman since then. So the little nuances, like character references that I didn't understand the first time, this time around, I appreciated it a lot more.
Absolutely. 100%. Shall we get started with this amazing interview, TJ?
Yes. So for our first question, we always lead with a warm-up question, which is, who is the best Bat detective or best detective in the DC universe, in your opinion?
I mean, I always have a soft spot for Tim. I mean, just kind of where he came from and what he was able to achieve with not a lot of help, to be honest with you. I think he's the best.
No, 100%. There's no wrong answer, obviously, but that's the right one.
I feel like, Marcus, you did give it away wearing an entire Red Robin outfit to this interview, though.
Well, I haven't done these digs in a long time, man. It's been a long time since I've been to a convention or spoke about Red Robin and Tim and stuff like that. So I got a little overexcited.
I am so glad you could show up wearing Red Robin gear to our show any day.
Yes, I'm glad you dug it out.
So you've drawn for most, if not all, of the Robins at this point. Which one is your personal favorite?
Well, I mean, it has to be Tim. And you know, a lot of it actually stems from the fact that not to say that he's not, in my opinion, the best Robin there was, but for me personally, I mean, he was actually, the Red Robin book was my very first big two project, in fact. So
wow,
that's incredible.
In a lot of ways, that book really kind of brought me into people's, homes, or I guess wherever you read the books. But and it was an amazing chance to kind of jump on a character that I already cared a lot about, but now for what that book meant to my career, it means so much more.
That's a huge break to go from not writing for the big two to being a Robin writer. I mean, that's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you came in like issue 6 or 7, and like you blew it out of the water. Like,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, the previous art was great too, but
we were obsessed with your art specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the story with that was actually funny because, like, you know how it's interesting how serendipitous some things can be.
Yeah.
But the editor for that book, Mike Martz, I had met him 3 years ago at San Diego at a party. I was introduced to him by Christina Strain, who was famous colorist in Marvel for Runaways, among others. Also was a part of the writing team for Magicians, the TV show now.
Oh, wow.
But she introduced me to Mike Martz, and over the years, I kind of just kept in touch with him. And while I was working for Aspen Comics, there was a kind of a drop in my workflow. And because I've already known him for so many years, I, called him, or not called him, but emailed him to see if he had any work. And he gave me a short story sample on the, it was like a Batman Christmas special with the character Vale. And he really liked what he did with that. So after I submitted that in, he sent me an email asking me if I wanted to draw Red Robin.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came up in a weird kind of long way where I've known the guy that eventually moved to the Batman titles, because at the time he was working with the X-Men office, right? So you never know where one conversation can lead you to. So it led me to Drake.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
they say it's always who you know.
Yeah, and I think in this industry as well, like I think just enjoying the the people around it is so great in a
Mhm.
lot of ways, that if you are just, nice and easy to work with, I think, especially when you're just first starting out, I think you could take advantage of that in a lot of ways. And I've known Mike since for now, I want to say almost 20 years, and he's been a great source of advice, gives me a lot of advice and had a lot of good things added to my career with, working with him.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like I'm going off book here.
It's
What
all
was
good.
your like I don't want to say relationship, but did you know of Tim Drake like before working on the book? Like was he
Oh
already your
yeah.
favorite?
Yeah, I
Or
think so, because I mean, like, so, Tim Drake during when he was Robin was around the time when I was a teen, right?
Yeah,
That's where he kind of came from. And in my eyes, I mean, everyone knew about Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, obviously.
sure.
But to me, they were far back, kind of how I felt about Hal Jordan, like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
um he was a character I knew, but right now the character that is Robin is Tim Drake, and kind of those formative years for him was also similarly the formative years for me.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I always felt that, when we look for fiction,
Mhm.
uh, at certain points in your life, you're gonna gravitate to certain characters that, mirror your own experiences. And I felt that, in an over dramatic way, I saw myself as a Tim Drake, when I was 16 years old. And so, because when I started working on Red Robin, I was only 23
Yeah,
Wow.
or
that's
somewhere around
incredible.
23. Yeah. So I was pretty young myself. And
Yeah.
Red Robin as a story, when he was, I mean, spoiler alert after all these years, when Batman died,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah, when Batman died, and a new Robin, which took the mantle from him in a lot of ways, uh, Tim Drake had to kind of find his own way and his own path. And at that time, I was, early 20s, looking for my own way in this career I've chosen to have for myself. And it almost over the years, it feels like he's mimicked my life in a lot of ways. So I
Aw.
beyond the stories, it really kind of that character really connects. I'm connected to that character in a lot of ways, even just personally.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I feel the same way about Tim Drake, so I'm with you.
Yeah. No,
We were
and that's the great thing about fiction, right? You're reading
Yeah,
these stories and
yeah.
you see yourself in those characters, and that's really important.
I agree.
We were saying that the Red Robin run really felt like a story about early 20s, like
Yeah.
because he doesn't feel like he's 16 in the book. So like, that you were behind the scenes at that same age, like I don't know, it just has that vibe for that age,
Yeah,
I think.
I love it.
When you think
Okay.
back on Red Robin, do you have a favorite moment or page that you're like especially proud of because of the work you put into it, or like a favorite story beat?
Well, I mean, there's there's two moments that are pretty famous for that story arc. Well, there's more than that. Because I think there's the Ra's al Ghul scene was pretty good. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
any time when like when Tim finally saw Connor again, and he
Yeah,
had no option but to hug him.
I
But
know.
similar to Bruce hugging Tim afterwards, a lot of the things that we wanted to kind of push in the story was, he lost his way and he was trying to find himself, and he kept himself away from his friends. And every once in a while, us as humans do that, and we wanted to make sure that those scenes were earned when they happened. We gave,
Mhm.
at least I felt that we gave them time apart to realize that the importantness
Mm.
of them being together was kind of key. So when we had to meet again, it was we had to make sure that um, the audience at least felt what we wanted him to feel like, you know.
Yeah.
So
Makes
And I think, and
sense.
in that
we-
situation, like, of course, Batman wasn't really dead, but
yeah,
the fact that you made Tim go through such a good character arc. Like
Mhm.
the death, even though it wasn't real, still affected him and
Mhm.
caused change to him. And I think it really, Chris and I were talking about how this Tim is really the Tim that people think of when they think of him.
Mhm.
So it's really cool that you guys made that
Yeah.
change lasting, I think.
I think with the sense of loss that he felt over everything, you know, of him finding a new identity as well, like losing Bruce and then kind of losing all he knew, which is the R, the
Yeah.
Robin uniform. For a person to go through that is it's an interesting journey, and I think for any adult, we do all go through that where it's kind of like our training wheels are off now
Mhm.
and trying to figure out what that means to us. I think that was the themes that we really wanted to put in the story. And I think both Chris and Fabian understood those characters and those moments, which is why I think I really like the pacing of the story, which is one of the
Yeah.
best things where we didn't give it all right away and we made him kind of figure things out himself before he came back to the people he loved.
Yeah.
And I think that means a lot to that character's growth.
100%.
Yeah. I think that when you brought up the pacing, I think the pacing has aged very well, especially those first like 12 issues that we
Yeah.
just read. Like it feels very modern. Like of course there's like 2000 moments where you're like, oh, that phrase or that word. But I think the story overall holds up really well.
Absolutely.
I should
So,
really reread that because I actually haven't read it
oh,
since
you
I worked
should.
on it.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
great.
So I hear there's a podcast episode coming out about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
There might be. It's called Gotham Outsiders.
Yeah, that'll refresh you.
sounds good.
So recently, Tim Drake came out as queer.
Mhm.
What was your reaction to the news? Were you surprised? Did it make you look back on Red Robin run differently?
No, actually, so you know, I, I'm very I'm quite a bit of a passenger when it comes to fandom, in the sense that
Mhm.
I go with whatever canon tells me it happens.
Yeah.
But when it
Fair.
comes to Tim, um, when I first worked on it, I was a young man, and there's a lot of things I didn't know about the world. I didn't know about the way certain fans saw certain characters,
Mm.
and I learned so much from the Red Robin Tim Drake fans just as a whole of what they saw in the character as even after I drew the book. In fact, I don't think I even really went to many conventions until after the book was already done. So I had really no idea, and I wasn't. I mean, obviously the internet existed, but I wasn't, and I still kind of am not, like really knee deep into, reading what people have been saying about it. But it was going to the conventions and listening to the fans and how they talked about Tim and how they saw him. It really opened my eyes to what was possible based on what we've done and what was done before. And him being bisexual or queer as a whole, like it kind of stemmed from a lot of commissions that were asked of me because you know I think the biggest thing about kind of interacting with fans, especially when you work on these characters, is the journeys that other fans have when they read these characters. Now,
Yeah.
and that's the joy of seeing something different than maybe me or you or whatever, and kind of creating that sense that this person represents who I think I am as a person and how it connects to other people. I learned so much from the fans, and the commissions, while I were quite cheeky at
Yeah.
first, really kind of gave me an insight over of what it felt like the audience wanted. And it's funny that that kind of came back to it because the little known fact was that Tim Drake actually was supposed to die with uh, earlier around the time when Bruce Wayne died, right?
Really?
And what saved him was an editor that wrote
Oh.
a long essay to upper management saying why the fans want Tim Drake to be around.
That's
And that's how Red
amazing.
Robin became a book.
Oh my God.
And so that start was also kind of like a fan driven one. It was because an editor understood what the fans wanted
Yeah.
and specifically went to went to bat for this character. And then that's also why Red Robin was so separate from all the other Bat families, because the team that had, you know, the Bat family kind of story at that time was built already. They already had kind of the machine going. So Tim Drake was kind of put off to the side to do whatever he was going to do, you know. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting how that worked. So
Yeah.
when, you know, there was this discussion now of Tim being queer, to me it was a logical progression based on what I've already known, what the fans wanted and what they saw of him.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm not a writer, so I don't, you know, I don't craft a story in that way. I kind of, I'm just glad that they had the two were able to see what others saw,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, we agree wholeheartedly. We were some of the people that saw it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so interesting about how the book came about. Like, it does feel very separate from the other books. Like, of course, you have like Dick and Damien pop up here and there, but I think it worked in its favor. Like, I love a story that's more self-contained. So I think it worked out.
It's funny how some of these things kind of like like this book wasn't, I'm sure it was planned, but it wasn't as planned as it might have seemed to be the overall, you know how comics are nowadays, where it's like all the Bat stuff happens and it's all continuity based to the point where every book has to connect with each other. And that one wasn't, not directly.
yeah.
Right.
And you know, I think it has legs,
Yeah.
which is
For
good.
sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
You said legs, and instantly you can tell I've been reading Batman. My mind goes to all the jokes about Dick not wearing pants and when he's Robin. Anyway, yeah, you were talking about like how, you know, fans in general, but I think queer fans specifically like saw themselves in Tim Drake. And while I think queer fans look for themselves in every character, I think Tim was not a blank slate, but he had more room to work with. Like, because like when we think of Dick or Jason or even Damien now, we think of like, oh, Dick is the carefree one who's funny. Jason is the quote angry one, even if you don't agree, like the more violent one. And then you have Damien, who is a murder baby. And Tim Drake, it was kind of like this, you know, not blank slate, but we had more room to work with.
It was not a blank slate. I'm gonna fight you on this one too.
No, I'm saying he's not a blank slate.
He had a very distinct personality, and it just happened to be a very queer one.
Okay, that is fair. But so I think Tim was the one who was probably most, not most likely, but we had
I think he was most likely.
Believe.
I'm with you.
Okay. I was like, I don't want to say, because I think we have room for all of them to possibly be. But
yeah, fair.
We had the best chance with Tim, I think, which leads me to, I will say I was not the first one to bring up the Tim and Connor scene here. So you know, usually I am.
That's true.
So even more recently, it was finally established that Tim realized recently that he had romantic feelings for Connor during that time period that Red Robin was taking place around. We don't know if he still feels that way currently, but at least back then he did. So I feel like this recontextualization feels pretty natural to me personally. But I'd love to hear what you think about that with that relationship, especially like in reflection of those issues in your run where Tim and Connor interact.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was an interesting time. You know what, the funny part of that was that I think a lot of people connected the two characters, not only because of, you know, because fans liked it, but I am, one of my closest friends is Francis Manipul, and at the time he also drew Superboy. So when they knew the two of us drew each other's books, it kind of ramped up a at least how I saw it, a strong connection between both books because we were close and then the characters are close. And I like that dynamic too because I mean like I love a good friendship story. And as I've grown older, friendship can friendship and love can come in a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
And when you're younger, sometimes you don't understand that very well. So I do love that the idea that Tim as a character can look back at his actions or his feelings and really reassess. Because I mean,
Yeah.
I've been doing that a lot lately. It's been quite a difficult few years for me
Mm.
personally, and I've also been, thinking back of my actions and how I felt and why I did things. So I think it's great. I think it all comes down to how a writer can craft a story to make the character. And I hate this discussion of retconning because I always believe that people can change, and if you write a
Yeah.
character's story that makes sense in the way that that person can change with us and grow with us as people, you know um why can't you do that, like
Mhm.
um, we all have to ask ourselves over time why we made the choices we made and why we acted the way we did in the past. And I think those are awesome, awesome themes that you can use for Tim or any character,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's such a great point because it's such a like strong part of coming through adolescence and reaching adulthood is looking back
mhm,
and being like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. And everyone thinks that even like look, everyone thinks they're adults at 20s, man. I didn't know what I was doing.
God, it's
But I
true.
think
Right.
the key is to to craft a story, and if the theme of your story is about those revelations and those kind of that character change
Yeah.
moment, then that's a choice of craft and how to push those themes forward, which is great. Because I always believe when creating a story, if what am I trying to tell the audience, you know
Mm.
what I mean? And
Mhm.
if I'm using the characters and the characters interactions with whatever happens in my story to to send that message to whoever's reading it, right? And as long as the choice is that that person wants to go through those moments of revelation, I think it's good.
Mm.
And comics do that often.
Yeah.
It happens all the time with any character. It just seems more pronounced because of kind of the discussion of his sexuality.
Mhm.
But people get married, people break up.
Mhm.
Like how many relationships did Dick Grayson go through,
Oh
and
my
will we
God.
never talk about it? So like why is it now? Because but I
Mm.
know the answer. But I mean,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
No,
right.
good
So
point.
but I mean that's how I see it, right? Like
Yeah.
other people have so many different get to have so many stories based on
Mm.
their relationship with other characters. I see no problems with
Right.
Tim Drake going
Ugh.
through his,
Mhm. Such a good point.
yeah.
We
So
all realized we were in love with Superboy at one point in our lives, right?
100%.
You mentioned not liking the word retcon, especially just in relation to this
yeah.
situation. And I totally agree because I think we talked about this book like last week and we recorded,
Mm,
and I used the word retcon at one point and it didn't sit right with me. And I
Mm.
was writing up these questions for you and I used the word again and I was like, that just doesn't feel right. So I went for
mm,
recontextualizing because looking back at these scenes, especially the one that you mentioned where they hug and Tim is just like, I mean, he literally thinks to himself, like, I just want to stay in this moment. He's
mhm,
basically like, this is my happy place
Yeah.
with Connor. Like, I'm like, he
mhm,
was very obviously had feelings for him. And just because it wasn't
mhm,
outright stated then doesn't mean it wasn't true, or even
Mhm.
that it, if it was intended or not, I think you can read it and infer that. So I
mhm.
like recontextualizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about and I enjoy this because it is an open discussion and how we discuss a character and their
Yeah.
and what we see in them, and or even how maybe different we see someone and things, which doesn't necessarily always come across when, say, you write a Facebook post or a Twitter post or whatever, because you know um sometimes the words we choose aren't correct in the
Mm.
sense that it doesn't really say what we want to say,
Mm.
and we're all trying to like figure that out over time, and I
Yeah.
like the recontextualized word too, so I might steal
Yeah.
that
Thank
from
you.
you in the
Yeah.
future.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah, I like that. It
Means
makes
a
me think,
lot.
considering the history of Tim Drake in comics, I'm like, it was a retcon for briefly when they pretended he never was Robin. It
Yeah.
was recontextualizing
Right.
when they realized he's gay.
Exactly. Like, to me, the word retcon makes me think there was no evidence beforehand and we're just now introducing the idea. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, it was there. For
Yeah.
the people that noticed it or wanted it to be there, it was there.
Exactly.
I think the journey of discovering oneself is the story as a whole in general. And like, let's say,
Yeah.
for example, so I always use Star Trek as an example because I'm a big Star Trek fanboy,
Yes,
right?
same.
So one of the things I really enjoyed is kind of like, if you're talking about long format storytelling, which I think comic books can be and generally are, especially North American comic books, because of how long they last in the grand scheme of
Yeah,
pop culture, right?
for sure.
That you have the ability to kind of go through those moments where someone has learning moments and tragedy and all this kind of stuff. But I use Worf as a great example because you
Yes.
got to see him from the beginning all the way through TNG and how he changes who he is, but not at the same time. To his greatest growth was through DS9 and that long format storytelling where you got to see the change of him realizing his mistakes and all the things that he was challenged in the end. Like, I still remember the very end, like, I think last couple episodes where Dax challenges him, basically is like, you are the most loyal, humble, honest Klingon, and if you are willing to look the other way, then what chance do the other Klingons have? And that literally one line contextualized his entire story arc from beginning to end, where it's like, you don't have, if that's the beauty of long format storytelling, where you get those moments because they're earned from decades of story to the point where it's like that person realizes it with you.
Yeah. That's
It's
so
amazing.
good. Oh, that's so well said.
Why I like it, because it's about craft, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you had only a short story of like 100 pages, let's say, yeah, you have to just write a very concise A to B to Z kind of story. But with a soap opera type style that comic books tend to have, you have more leeway to take that character along a journey and then come to realizations that you maybe wouldn't have with shorter form storytelling. So
I love it.
Hearing you talk just made me so happy.
Me
Just
too.
because I can just sense your love of stories and
I
storytelling.
love it.
And like, your art is amazing. And I'm like, I can just feel that love in your artwork. And I feel like that sounds so corny.
No, but we talked
like,
about this in our episode too.
Yeah.
Like, you drew Tim so lovingly, and we just
Yes.
oh, so good.
He was beautiful. Thank you.
He was beautiful. We loved his flowing locks.
And I'm gonna bring up TimKon one more time, and then I promise we can move on.
That's TJ. He does
but my
Okay.
excuse is that our listener Thomas, and once guest of the podcast, wanted us to specifically ask about those commissions that you mentioned earlier. So I wanted to ask, like, you drew so many of them, like all of them were commissions, and like, did you have a favorite one?
Okay, so all my commissions actually started from one person.
Okay.
I don't know if they want me to name names, but it's a person that I've known for a lot of years. And it literally started from this person asking for a Tim and Dick Grayson pillow fight, but they're wearing boxers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it.
That's amazing.
So I know it's not TimKon, but
yeah.
So once that kind of started and it started making its rounds through Tumblr.
Oh my gosh, I'll need to find it.
Yeah, that was the very first one I did of that.
Looking it up right now, see if I find it.
So ever since then, So I have a rule, and this is not a rule that I like. I'm not judging anyone for it, but it's
Yeah.
only just for my own sanity in conventions that I don't do any nudity, but I do
Fair.
anything kind of like cheeky or
Yeah.
romantic or fun, something that's like, you know,
Yeah.
That makes
fun for
sense.
both of us.
Yeah,
'Cause
a little shippy.
especially, yeah, and I don't sense, I'm not for censorship as a whole, but when I'm at a convention where there's children and other things like
Right.
that, I think it's just best to keep it, generally
Yeah.
relatively PG.
Safe for work.
Yeah, exactly. Safe for work. Because
I think
there's
I
a lot of
found it.
children. Yeah. There's a lot of children at conventions. And it's not like when I don't know how old you guys are, but when I was going to conventions, it was like a free for all of porn and ninja stars and
Yeah.
and you're sitting next to a former penthouse pet, which is great. It's fine, but it's not
Yeah.
like that anymore, right? I believe it's for the best. Anyway, but from that point of that pillow fight commission, people started seeing it, and so it got to a point where when every time I go to conventions, they'd think of something new. So it could be anybody. Generally, it's with the Robins.
And this is the same
So
person commissioning?
well, at first it was just the same person.
Okay.
And then new people started coming with their own ideas, and
Gotcha.
it went from Jason, Todd, and Damien eating burgers to
Aw.
like to something more romantic. Like I remember someone asking to give to their fiance. I think it was Kyle Rayner and was it Kyle Rayner and Dick Grayson? But like they would talk to me
Yeah.
about pairings, and sometimes it's romantic, sometimes it's fun. Like I
Yeah.
remember this other relatively famous one for that got Tumblr famous. Um,
Hey, that's pretty
like
famous in my
That's pretty
book.
famous.
yeah, like Tim Drake or Damien pranking Tim Drake for Halloween in some ways, and I
Oh,
had him
I love
uh
it.
That's so wholesome.
like
That is really
chucking
cool.
like I can't even remember like chucking eggs at Tim or something like that. Like it goes from wholesome to whatever. So I got a lot of commissions of pairings, and of course they want me to also recreate like TimKon hug scenes to
Oh.
um
I saw the
and
engagement one.
yeah, that
Stop.
was, I think that was in like Shanghai that someone asked
Aw.
for that. But yeah, so, and I've always felt like I don't, me personally, I don't, that's not the way I consume fiction. But like I was saying earlier about listening to fans and hearing what they have to say, I've always really enjoyed that ride with the fans and hearing why they would like this character with that
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
And then I learn a lot from those kind of interactions, and they would tell me about how they see this story arc and what that interaction meant. That in a lot of these commissions, I've been a passenger in a lot of ways of their creativity. So
I love that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I
when-
mean, as I enjoy it for the sake of them, for myself. Like I said, it's not, and I'm not criticizing anybody for
Sure.
how they wish to uh enjoy their fiction. But I mean, for me, I am very much like I do it for them. And I try to do it as best as I can.
Very selfless of
Is
you.
is this the fan art you're talking about in the chat here? I just
Let
wanted
me see.
I want to make sure it's the right one so I can post it with the show.
You see.
It's gorgeous.
Oh, it is that one. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that's been
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, I
That's
love the
one.
outfits on the floor though.
I
Yeah.
know, that's really cute. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
So you were Batman Wayne Family Adventures before it was a thing, is what I'm hearing. That's also
Well,
very wholesome.
it's
Oh, so
funny.
good.
I feel like I was ahead of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
with a lot of
were.
these things.
Yeah.
Well, like so coming into this, we wanted to talk about TimKon specifically,
Mhm.
at least for a bit. And I was like, well, he's drawn so much. I was like, is he like into it? Is he a shipper? What's his feelings on it?
Mm.
So no, I love that you're like passive about it, but you
Mhm.
indulge the fans and you love that they're passionate. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say it like this. It's very difficult to be that level of fan in something you work in
Right.
because and I'm not gonna go into details about what happened, but there's sometimes you can if especially if things don't go exactly your way and you know, comics is my life and I work in it,
Sure.
and sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it to go, and it can be very difficult if you're also a fan of it to that level that
Right.
over the years I've had to find that separation
That's attachment a little bit.
a little bit. So that's why I kind of, when it comes to my personal life and how I interact with it, yeah, it's very professional. You know, my whole thing is to get this job done, but my enjoyment of it is through someone else's eyes.
Yeah. I'm going to
Yeah.
go off script a minute here too, because I'm just
Sure.
curious based on what you're saying. And you don't have to tell us who if you don't want to, but are there characters you would never want to write because you'd have to interact with them in that way?
Well, the hard part about me on the writing side of things, and I've
Well, I
thought
mean,
about
drawing.
writing,
Sorry, I
yeah,
meant to say
drawing.
drawing.
No, for drawing wise, I don't necessarily have any limits of that I can think of.
Okay.
But I mean, I am aware of the possibilities of you know, discontent with certain pairings, but I that is something I'm relatively ignorant about, so I would be willing to have that discussion.
Yeah.
At the same time too, though, it's very difficult for me to judge, I guess, of how people wish to consume their fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I I have no place. I basically I can't find a way for myself to tell people what to do, uh,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult for me to even kind of be that person. So, but I want to listen and I want to hear about it, but I mean, it's been a long time since I've even opened up my commissions, so
Yeah.
it's been a lot of
Fair.
years, and to be honest with you, I haven't really thought too much about it
Fair.
other
Yeah.
than
Oh, that's fair. I was just really
whatever.
curious because your perspective is very unique, I think, in a very interesting and cool way. So I was
No,
curious.
it's all good. I like talking about this stuff because I mean, the only way that I can learn is through this kind of discussion as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Chris is a therapist. Could you tell?
oh,
That's my day job.
oh, that's awesome.
You got in your therapist voice.
I'm so sorry. I was like, so tell me more about that.
No, I appreciate it. I think it's awesome that you have you help
Thank you.
you help in that way.
Thank you. I think it's particularly interesting to me how people interact with media, especially people who work in it, because I do think it's challenging because when you work on something, it changes your relationship to it.
Yeah, and I think also at the same time as well, you know, everyone's looking for sound bites as they always are.
Yeah.
Like, and I have them. Like, I can give you a
Sure.
one-liner for all these things that we talk about. Ha 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 ha. It's like
Yeah.
this. But I mean, it's not.
Give us a couple of gotcha quotes so we can, I'm just kidding.
One of the things that I've actually really hated about the internet lately is because of TikTok and all these kind of things. All you see is just the one line that people like to gravitate towards, but I mean, it's not a conversation. So
we're gonna put up a headline: Marcus Toe hates
one-liners.
TikTok.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I actually love TikTok, but I know it's a lot of things are kind of easy to.
Yeah.
We are in that kind of media nowadays where it's very easy to kind of have those short clip moments that people like to gravitate towards, and it's doesn't really help anybody, but it's all good.
So well said. So well said.
Well,
so we won't really say that you hate TikTok.
No. And before we move on to the next topic, I just want you to know, Marcus, you are a TimKon icon. Like in that
Yeah.
fandom, like
It's really true.
the scenes you drew are the most talked about, I think, along with like the other, it might have been your friend drawing the Superboy book at the time, I'm not sure, but those two, between those characters, like what you did was iconic, and like the fact that you've indulged them with commissions that are amazing, like they're a big deal. So,
I mean, the fans have been great. The fans
have supplied a lot of thirst traps for people.
Here's the thing, I don't mind that at all. But I mean, like, it's kind of an interesting perspective too, because I started the book when I was like, mid to early 20s, and now I'm like 39.
Yeah.
So, my interaction with the character is not the same as it used to be.
True.
But I love the fans. They've been so supportive over the years. It's been, more than 10 years since the book ended, and people still talk to me about it, which is great. At the same time as well, like, so I want to do more for them when I can, and for a lot of the commissions, the best thing I can say is that I never see them on sale. No one flips that stuff. So when they ask me for something like that, they keep it, which is amazing.
It's for them.
That's why
I'm gonna see you one day.
the extra
I'm gonna
mile.
commission you.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that. I was like, we
one
gotta
day.
commission him.
What's your next con? I'll be there.
Most of them will be in Canada for this 23.
We have friends in Canada.
We're going to Canada, I guess. No.
Well, Vancouver and Calgary is probably what I'm thinking, and then Toronto after that, and then I'm gonna try maybe next year New York, because I always like New York.
So I want to go back.
Yeah,
I just went for the first time. It was so crazy, but now I'm like, all right, I can do it.
Well, where are you guys from?
I'm up near Pittsburgh currently, and TJ's back in Maryland.
Yeah.
There's a Steel City Con, isn't there?
Yeah, I've never been, but I may go one day.
Yeah,
soon.
Absolutely. So come to Steel City Con, and we'll hit you up.
I wanted to say, you, Marcus, you said you related to Tam quite a lot, and I think one of your traits is that neither of you physically age. Because you don't look 39.
I was thinking the same thing when he was saying he wasn't 23 anymore. I was like, so what is he, 26?
Yeah. Also,
it's you're very kind, but I'm wearing a hat for a reason.
Don't worry, it's a Red Robin hat, so you're good.
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure.
So switching gears to my other favorite Robin, you also drew the flashbacks in Red Hood Cheer, mostly featuring Jason Todd as Robin. What was it like adding to the lore of such stories like Batman, The Death in the Family? Did you reference those Jason stories to inspire flashbacks, or did you approach it with your own vision?
No, I mean, I don't want to say I was told to read the thing. I mean, but I was given I was given the whole book to kind of like look over, because we specifically reference very specific scenes. So I did want to look it over, and I did want to pay homage in some ways to not the copy, but to kind of keep with, that scene or that panel happened right specifically here. So at the very least, I wanted to keep kind of consistent to what it kind of looked like.
Like continuity,
scenery wise. Like if this was on a hill or something, I don't know. But it was exciting to work on it for a few reasons. Obviously, anytime you get to work on a Batman character, I would jump at the chance. I also know Chip Zdarsky personally, so
do you?
Yes. All of us Toronto people. All of us Toronto people. I could try, but I mean, he doesn't listen to me.
JK. He would not. DC would not allow that.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way.
You got to go through his agent, Allison.
Right. Yeah. You got to tell us what's in his rider when he comes up. Does he roll in with like blueberries? No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
You can just tell him how lovely
Chip is not his real name, hey?
What?
Really?
Oh,
that's our headline.
You gotta. I'm not gonna give you all the. You guys gotta be
legwork here.
Yeah. You gotta little bit at a time.
Y'all gotta use your legs.
I already found your commission. I can find this too.
Sure. So Chip has a really interesting history, because in Toronto comics he's well known for many years of a lot of his indie work, and very kind of, I don't know, well thought of.
Steve Murray.
Oh, nice.
Don't challenge me to the Google.
Cracking me up over here.
Yeah. No, I know. It's not that he hides it, but
It's
not a
literally,
secret.
it's literally on his Wikipedia.
yeah, I know.
Is it?
Actually,
Okay.
so this is the story of why he chose
Yeah.
a pseudonym, or is that what it is? Pseudonym? No,
Yeah.
yeah. Because he used to work for the National Post. I think it was National Post, right? Yeah, National Post. Sorry, my wife knew
You're
him for a
fine.
lot of years, and he used to do this comic called Prison Comics, right? And he Prison Funnies, and he wanted to not conflict with his day job stuff. So Chip Zdarsky became a pseudonym, and
Love
he even did so far as to locally try to not try, but he kind of did it cheekily. He created a ZdarsCon in Toronto, and at one point he was same
What?
time as Fan Expo, just to
That's
be.
so funny.
And he rented a hotel room and got people to come up, and he'd sign. He is and for sex criminals.
Yes.
He did a launch party in a sex club in Toronto, and it was like a whole thing. It was
He sounds like the coolest.
I know. I'm loving the Zdarsky Con or whatever.
I know.
It's like the Jeremy Renner app, but better.
But I mean, like, yeah. So I've known him for a lot of years. So I mean, when he came up, and we got a chance to work together, I really jumped at the chance. So there's a lot of these connections that I love, and I think that it's important to like enjoy both the character and the story that you work with, but also the creators that you work with as well, because comics is very much a team job. It's everyone involved is quite vital to why the books come out the way you like it.
It sounds like you and him were pretty close at the time that the book was done. So like, does that change the working relationship? Like, was it different than working with a writer that you've never met before?
In some ways it does. Like, I've never worked with Chip professionally before this time. So I didn't really know his structure, his style of writing, and kind of what he wanted. But I knew he's an artist himself, so I know that he would understand certain kind of shorthands if I was to say, like, I think we can adjust this to that. But I never really felt like I needed to, because again, he's an artist, so his visual acuity with this medium is awesome. So it felt really easy to kind of read a script and go to layouts and drawing it afterwards. But when it comes to someone I haven't never worked with, you never really know what you're gonna get, because I'm not gonna name names, but there was one writer that I almost worked with that I did layouts for, and they gave me a bunch of notes, which is fine, but what this person ended the notes with, "You should listen to me because I've got X amount of years in the industry," and blah blah blah. It's like, well, you didn't really need to add that last part.
Charming.
Right.
So already at that point, it's like, okay, it's probably not going to go over well. So you either just suck it up and just complete the task and never work with this person again, or you find a way to make them understand why that's not okay. And at the time, I was too young to probably say that, but I would like to think that if I ever encounter that again, that I would find a diplomatic way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
So but I've been incredibly lucky over the years. I could have really only named that one person that I've worked with that was difficult in that way.
Yeah.
Everyone else, everyone else has their own style of writing, which can be more complicated to break down, and some easier. But that's kind of a person to person kind of craft discussion more than it is personality conflicts.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
So Red Hood Cheer is one of my favorite Batman family stories ever. Like, I just think it is amazing. So I have to ask, it's a little fresher in your mind than Red Robin, probably. So, like, do you have a
Okay.
favorite part of what you worked on in that book too, or just a part of the book that stands out to you?
Well, I mean, I was only really brought on to draw the flashback sequences, so it was relatively kind of a quick project to work on. I think any time I get to draw a young Robin, I think it's always super fun. Um, you know, also, just the fact of drawing Batman, and I've always struggled with drawing Batman because my style generally leans more towards a youthful look, and people like Batman gritty and dark and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Oh,
So
nice.
me trying to find my own voice and how I want to draw Bruce was a good challenge. I wish I had a longer time with him to figure that out a little bit more. It's funny because the two characters I struggle most with is Superman and Batman, and you think that they'd be the easiest, but I think it's just that I haven't found my voice through those characters just yet, so it doesn't come across easily yet. But I would like the chance. I mean, I would love to draw Superman someday.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But
No, I think your
meantime,
style would be great for either of those characters. Like,
yeah.
you mentioned the youthful look, and like I think it was such a good fit of your style with the flashbacks because of Jason being so young, and it kind of, even the colors and like the lighting in it, like it has a very bright youthful feel to it. And just your style is perfect for that. But I would love to
Well,
see
thank
a
you.
lighter Batman
Yeah.
book with your art. Maybe World's Finest.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, we'll see. You never know. I am good friends with the Bad Office head editor, and we've
Yeah.
been
There
talking
we
about
go.
trying to do something together for a while, but
Oh my God.
schedule-wise, it hasn't worked out over the past couple of years. So
Sure.
we'll see if we can work that
We
something
need
out.
more. We're
I was gonna
ravenous for
s-
more
I
of your
know.
art.
We're gonna have a Google alert set to you and DC. So, do you, as a reader, have a favorite Tim or Jason or even Nightwing comic besides the ones you've worked on? What are they?
I mean, I'm quite a big fan of Robin Year One. I mean, a lot of people like. I mean, one of the best things about it is that it is a self-contained story, and it kind of is the style of those books allow for a very isolated view and a good kind of almost like a solidify that character in a moment of time.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good one.
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting because over the years I've read Tim through more Batman stories than I did for Tim himself stories. So
Have you read the newer ones with him
no,
coming out? I was just
no,
curious.
unfortunately not. I'll be honest, I haven't read a comic for years.
Oh.
And that is
Interesting.
because, and that's not for anything other. I used to read a lot. Like I
Yeah.
used to read when around the time when Batman No Man's Land was, like
Oof.
around.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
when I was reading the most, like that kind
Oh,
of stuff, plus like New 52, not New 52, 52
yeah.
with all that stuff. And then that's
Yeah.
how I started loving Booster Gold and all those,
Oh,
that
yeah.
era kind of leading up to the death of Batman was
Oh
kind
my
of the
God.
highest point.
I feel like we need to diverge and just talk about Stephanie Brown Robin then for like about 5 hours.
I think I read more Stephanie Brown Robin than I
Yeah.
did actual Tim Drake Robin
Oh my
comics.
God. She's so great, right?
Yeah.
love
I
her
mean,
so
I even go back to yeah, I mean, like the Freddie Williams junior
Yeah.
run of Robin, Tim Drake Robin. I read a lot of.
Yeah.
What else? It was so long ago, and yeah, once I started kind of really working in comics, though, that's when it fell off, and that's when I was talking
Yeah.
about the separation between kind of what you do professionally now that I
Yeah.
had to do, or else it's very easy to get caught up with stuff you can't control when you kind of indulge yourself too much in that world. I think, especially when you
Yeah.
work in it.
Interesting.
So I had to kind of separate myself. But yeah, like I remember, yeah, it's been a long time.
Fair.
So moving away from Batman for a second, I
Sure.
wanted to talk about Excalibur for a little bit
Mhm.
because I was reading that too and loved it. And when I realized you were the same person drawing these and that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense because I love that art style too.
Mhm.
So Tim coming out isn't the only coming out of a closet character that you've worked on
That's true.
recently. You also contributed heavily to Excalibur in the last few years, where the romance between Betsy Braddock and Rachel Summers was really brewing for some time. Like,
Mhm.
what was that process like behind the scenes? Like, were you aware of that romance and the implications when you were drawing them?
You know, it's funny. I feel kind of jealous because
Oh yeah.
I always build these things up. I never actually get to draw the moment where we actually see it. So
Aw.
part of
I
me actually
know.
feels like, oh man, I miss out on the the payoff.
Yeah.
Um,
You're setting them up for a spike,
yeah,
you're helping out.
exactly. But yes, it was. I mean, it wasn't directly said
Mm,
between me and Teeny about what would happen with Betsy and Rachel, but uh, for sure, if you ever get a hold of her scripts, it was the undertone was for sure there.
Mm.
yeah.
They specifically kind of and I played off of it too. I tried to when I read those scripts, I was like, okay, there's something there. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
play into it where I'm like, they're looking at each other a little bit longer, or
Oh,
like, there's like kind of like
mm,
when you kind of are interested in someone early on, where you just kind of not creepily, but you find a way to kind of touch them or like kind of lean
yeah.
into them. And I wanted to kind
Yeah.
of like add those panels whenever I
Oh,
could of just them being close,
yeah.
whether
I
it
love it.
be kind of like a tilt up of the eyes to look at each other, or like,
I love it.
just simple things like that. Or if they're walking away, just to have them linger, look
Mm,
in that direction.
yeah.
Um, while
You were
let's
picking up what she was putting down. You
yeah,
knew what was
exactly,
going
exactly,
on.
exactly. Like, I mean, I kind of already, yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all teeny, right? Because
Yeah.
she's great, and she kind of, without telling me, just wrote a really good script where I just fed off of what I
Mm,
felt like she wanted to tell with these characters. And that's how
yeah.
I always felt about collaboration is that when you work with a writer, or each other, I don't try to interject what I think should happen all the time. It's really just reading what they want to do and kind of picking up the themes of it, and then just
Mm,
focusing on the themes. And I
yeah.
think, again, like when you talk about storytelling, what are we trying to tell the audience, right?
Yeah.
And then that should be the message throughout the whole part of the story. Like, I
Yeah.
work with the creative, the working with the writer, that we have to be on the same ship,
hmm So we have a new thing to manifest as a podcast. Let Marcus
Okay.
draw a coming out scene.
Let's do Kitty Pride next. We're like halfway there. Or 99%.
Well,
Depending how you
who
look
I
at it.
wish that I could draw,
Who's that?
but I mean, he's already out. But
Sure.
Iceman, I would love to draw an Iceman.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I've
oh,
I've
you
been
would
a
be
big
so
fan of
good.
Iceman for a long time.
Oh, well, we know who we're commissioning you to do next time we see you.
Well, the problem with commissioning
Yeah.
Iceman, because he
True.
doesn't work as well with black and white.
That's
I
really
feel
true.
like
Who is this naked man?
yeah, I'm not sure. So I'm gonna have to try to bring some Copics to figure that out. But because I
Fair
don't
enough.
color very well, and especially not at cons, because it's like
Oh,
Yeah.
hectic.
pressure.
Yeah, but your art style with Iceman would be so
Yeah.
good.
I would love to
We're
draw
gonna
Bobby Drake,
manifest it. We're gonna make it happen. Maybe you
Yeah.
can do a flashback to when he came out.
Well, two characters I would love to draw. Well, I mean, that's off the like the normal Spider-Mans and Supermans, but Booster Gold Booster Gold and Blue Beetle on one side,
Yes.
Mm.
and then Iceman on the other side would be really great.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We just talked to the writer of the new Blue Beetle series, and
Yeah.
love
The
it.
art on that is stellar, but like
It's really
your
good.
art, like I can very easily see your art fitting like a Blue Beetle book too, like just
Mhm.
that fun, youthful vibe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good.
Speaking of people that fans ship, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle.
Well,
Oh,
I mean
really?
that
yeah.
Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, like from I can't believe it's not the Justice League or Justice League International. Those scenes were so good.
Yes.
And even if they're just friends, like I
Yeah,
just
sure.
like that dynamic between the two characters, and
Yeah.
I've always really enjoyed that.
100%. TJ, I can't believe you didn't know that was a ship.
No, I didn't.
I'm gonna have to send you so many links when we're done.
I told you my Blue Beetle knowledge is mainly Young Justice, the show.
I have on my shelf. I have a Blue Beetle. I'll show you guys. It's not as cool for the podcast, but I don't know if my camera makes it that far. But
fair. Oh my god!
Can you kind of see?
Yes, I love your whole shelf. Oh my god!
It's like Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, kind of like individual shelves.
So we had a question for you about recommendations of comics, but it sounds like maybe you don't have any. Do you have any kind of media that you are enjoying right now? Books or movies, TV shows, music, things like that?
I'm all about Star Trek these days.
Yes.
Or, well, I've been for the last bunch of years, to be honest with you.
Talk to me about Star Trek for the next 5 hours, please.
I mean, I can many tangents with that because I read the novels as well.
Oh, me too.
Well, I haven't caught the new ones. The ones. What was the era they kind of? It was like basically after DS9, and the novels became canon.
Yes, those are fun.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun, and I get a lot out of it from them. But I mean, with media, it's been tricky because I don't know. It's been a very weird few years, and it's I've been trying to find comfort viewing or things kind of like separate. So I've been watching a lot of hockey because I'm a big jock as well.
Yeah.
But I've been rewatching a lot of older stuff that I've watched. Like I've seen Godfather yesterday for the 80th, 100th time or whatever. Random stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like comfort viewing stuff. Lord of the Rings over and over.
Oh, you are my kind of person. My literal decorations in my house are Lord of the Rings. Like.
I still haven't watched the new one yet, but I want to. I'm gonna
really
do it. I've been so bombarded with work that all I could do is put something on that I don't have to, like I've seen a million times, that I don't have to think about.
It has the same feeling as the old ones, so it's perfect. It's what you need. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Can't
love
wait.
it. Yeah, we're just gonna have to come bring you back on for an episode where we talk Star Trek and Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings,
I know, and TJ's gonna be like, I don't know what's happening.
I know a lot about Lord of the Rings and Star Trek. I'm a casual fan.
Yeah.
Star Trek, I have a lot of opinions, but not in the negative way, in the sense that, but I love the discussion of Star Trek because I think that the best part of Star Trek is that discussion because of the themes that those stories evoke. That's the whole point of Star Trek, in my opinion, is to have those conversations that aren't necessary. And that's the great thing about sci-fi as a whole. I think I love sci-fi for that reason. It really kind of makes you think about, not saying like what side of the fence you are on, but really, makes you think about like these things happen. There's no easy answer, but have the conversation, right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's so many episodes of Star Trek that I just can sit and think about for like 5 years if given the opportunity. Measure of a Man. Oh my God.
Yeah, the drumhead. TNG's the drumhead. Oh my God, yeah. So we should start a Star Trek podcast.
Please. Oh my God. See, usually this happens with our guests and TJ and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I haven't seen. So now TJ's knowing what I feel like.
Oh my gosh. Actually, coincidentally, I was talking to a coworker today and she was like, oh, my friend has a Star Trek podcast and we got talking. It's called Beyond Trek. So
I have to look it up.
I just followed them on our podcast Twitter.
Nice.
Yeah. I have to ask you, because I have to ask every Trek fan this. Have you ever read any of the Star Trek novels written by Shatner?
No.
They're so bad and delightful. He wrote one that's like basically fan fiction about Spock and Kirk in Academy, and it's hilarious. Okay, so coming back on topic slightly for a second.
Okay.
Do you have any DC Comics hills you will die on? So maybe something silly or specific that you have an intense opinion about?
Well, I mean, the basic ones are generally like, obviously Tim's the best Robin is the hill I will die on. But
same.
Yeah.
I have thoughts about a lot of things. Like I still don't think I still don't like the idea of Batman killing anybody, and I don't like Superman killing anybody either.
Yeah.
I think the hill I die on with Superman, I'm not saying that he couldn't or that that's not a good story, that if he got pushed to the point where he can kill somebody. Or Wonder Woman, I think she should kill someone because I mean that's her, she comes from a warrior tribe and that's the kind of thing that they go about. But I think when it comes to Superman, I think what's the thing about Superman I think is really important that people seem to forget. They use the word hope all the time when they don't really know what it means. He should be hopeful. He should be the best example of anybody with anything. And if Superman can't find a solution but to kill, then what chance that anyone else has that doesn't have these superpowers, right? So I've always felt that, you know, some stuff like that, I'm very staunch against Superman doing these things because, you know, he himself is the type of person that again, like I said, if he can't find a way with all his gifts, and he wants to be the best of everybody. Maybe some of the best stories is when villains take advantage of his, you know, his own belief of self-importance.
Yeah.
You know, that's why stuff like Superman Red Sun works really well because he is the type of person that believes that the world can't function without him. You know, he really feels like I got to do everything and everything for everybody, and then the responsibility of that kind of thing. So I think he would take killing people really, really seriously. And if the story in itself was to a point where that is the story that he would be conflicted to a point where he has to kill somebody, I can stomach it if that was the theme of the story to the point where it's like, yeah, literally no other option.
Yeah.
But if we ourselves can figure out an option while reading or watching or whatever, then which is why I think Bruce Timm's Superman was one of the best stories of Superman that there was, because it really depicted both his fragile nature of where he saw himself in the world, but also his own arrogance and ego that kind of affected him in different parts of where the story led to, with Darkseid taking advantage of him and things like that. So really, I mean, it's not a really crazy controversial hill to die on, but
but you're passionate about it.
No, I love it. I think it is somewhat unfortunately controversial now because there's a lot of dark takes on Superman, and I'm like, no thanks.
I've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League.
What bothers me about that is that because I want something different. Is it really that different? Everyone's have a dark take. There's literally millions of dark takes of Superman from, you know, all the other parodies or whatever. Not even parodies, but you know, like the boys and even exactly.
Watchmen, 100%.
Again, Superman Red Sun, like there's so many of these things. How different are you if you're just doing what everyone else has been doing, you know?
That's it. Yes, there you
So
go.
Why I mean, I'm not saying that he should all of a sudden have, you know, 20 different visions again or whatever, you know, the back in the day he had.
Oh God.
But I think there is a story there where you can really lean into both him being an immigrant and how he feels in the world that he is in, but also hiding himself from really being who he is. On top of that, from his own belief of you know, his own hero complex of believing he's better than other people. You know, I think that's a story that can be told.
I think Chris and I are probably thinking the same thing. You should read Superman Smashes the Klan. If you haven't yet.
I haven't, but I am quite. That sounds.
Like
I've seen it. I know about it. But.
And it specifically pulls on those threads of him being an immigrant. And
well, I think are you working on Shang-Chi with the writer of that book?
Shang-Chi is over now, so I'm working on.
You were though, right?
I was, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, I know you know about it, but
I do.
Had to bring it up.
Have you heard of this writer?
Have you heard? Well, Marcus, thank you so much for coming on and saying TimKon writes. Where can our listeners
Is that the headline?
Hey, I'm working for it. Where can our listeners find you on social media? And do you have any upcoming projects they should be looking out for?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Marcus To. My Instagram is Marcus Anthony To. Uh, I think my Tumblr's still active, but I don't remember what it is. I think I just might start using Tumblr more often again
Yeah,
now,
fair.
since you know
Me too.
how
With Twitter.
how
Yeah.
It's a dumpster fire over
yeah,
there.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah. So if you just search my name, Marcus To, To, it should be on everything. And right now I'm working on a creator-owned book,
Ooh.
with IDW that hasn't been announced yet. So I
Ooh.
can just say it's fantasy oriented, um, leaning towards YA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I
So
like to hear.
and then it'll be a graphic novel, so it'll be
Okay.
kind of like a
Nice.
one to the story. Hopefully I can share that one soon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yes. I love
Oh,
YA, so I'll have to check it
yeah.
out.
And I love fantasy, so we're here. Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to be following you so we can talk more Star Trek.
Yeah, hey, I love it. If there's one thing I can talk forever
Uh-huh.
about is Star Trek, so I
Just
appreciate
prepare yourself
that.
for the unsolicited Star Trek DMs. They're about to happen.
Hey, you wouldn't be the only person, trust me, because
Oh,
I
that
have a
makes me so
friend of
happy.
mine on Twitter that we share them as well, and I actually managed to get my wife to watch all of, well, not all, but the TNG,
Yeah.
Voyager, DS9
Amazing.
trifecta, and even Enterprise I managed, and
Wow.
she really has gotten into it herself, so I like talking about it.
Yeah.
That's when you know it's true love.
Yeah, when you can get her to watch all of those different seasons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Enterprise. I
mean,
didn't
that's
think
a
I
big
could get
call.
that done.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
She must really love you.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Marcus,
someone has to.
please come back.
Yeah,
anytime.
literally anytime
Thank
you
you.
want to talk about a book,
Sure.
even from back when you were reading comics, would love to talk to
Well,
you.
next time I'm on a DC book, we'll talk.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for listening to the Gotham Outsiders. You can find me, Chris, on Twitter at The Myth of Psyche, where I talk about feminism, psychology, and Batman, of course. But you can also find me on my new show at Thirsty on Toon, over on the Talking Comics feed, where Bronwyn and I review webtoons and drink wine, and also review romance novels. You can also find me writing reviews at talkingcomics.com, and I am now accepting consulting clients. So if you need someone to do sensitivity reading or consult on psychology or queer identity, I'm your person. You can also find my co-host TJ
at Troyfin2 on Twitter, where I talk about books, gay things, gay books, and all sorts of things, including Batman pretty often, way more than I used to. And I recently became an official librarian, so you can find all sorts of book reviews that I post just for fun, a lot of advanced reviews of books that haven't come out yet. So if you're looking for a nice gay read, please hit me up. You could also find me talking on other podcasts just here and there if you search my name on any podcast service provider that you listen to.
And you can find us both talking about Batman all the time at the Gotham Outsiders. So join us next time. Same bat time, same bat place.